Okay, here we go. We're on Daf Dalet. Today is Daf Dalet, and we're going to start from Daf Gimel Omud Sheni, Maskif Law Rav Kahana. What we are discussing here today, is the Jewish Trump, Lahavdil, the one that was the son of Achashverosh and Esther. And we're going to learn some interesting things about this person. What the Gemara said before was that, let's just go back and say that his grandfather, Daryavesh, who was also known as Koresh Melech Paras, his grandfather, hi, Louis, we just began. Hi, Louis, we just began.
You said the Jewish Trump?
Yeah, because he was very nice to the Jews. He allowed them and helped them build the second temple.
Oh.
So his first grandfather was the king of Persia, and he gave permission to build the Beis Hamikdash in the year 3390. And then we have the kingdom of Achashverosh that begins in 3392. I think we're in 5782. So it's 2,300 years ago, 400 years ago.
Wow.
And then we have the Nes Purim, 3,404. Now, I want to tell you, when Achashverosh took over his kingdom, he stopped the building of the Beis Hamikdash. Then we have the Nes Purim. And then, for some reason, it's not everybody agrees with this, Achashverosh and Esther had a child, another Daryavesh or Koresh or Achashasta, that he's known in the Gemara. And he was a nice guy in the beginning. In the beginning of his kingdom, he's a nice person, and he gave permission to continue to build the Beis Hamikdash. Again, to override the stop work order that his father, Achashverosh, gave to the construction of the Beis Hamikdash, he gave permission to rebuild the Beis Hamikdash, and then it was rebuilt again, and it was completed in 3,412. And then Ezra comes up to get things going in the operations of the Beis Hamikdash and enact laws and make it like a frum place to live in Eretz Yisrael, because not too many people were keeping the Torah. So Ezra, went up there and became the leader. And then many years later, Nehemiah came up because it was dangerous to live in Eretz Yisrael and Jerusalem because the walls were breached. So Nehemiah got permission from Koresh again to build the walls of Jerusalem, and then he returned, and then afterwards, not too long, Yavan, the Greeks, took over and destroyed the Persians. So that's this short reign of the Persian kingdom. So what the Gemara said before is that this Daryavesh, this Koresh, the son of Achashverosh and Esther, at first when he started his kingdom, he was a kosher king. Everything he did, he was very good to the Jews. So they counted him. His years were counted according to the way they count Jewish kings. The new year of a Jewish king is Rosh Nisan. But later on in his kingdom, after the 6th year, after almost when the Beis Hamikdash was completed, he turned sour against the Jewish people and he was bad against the Jewish people. And therefore they count him as a Goyish king. Right? He's not a Jewish king. He's counted as his new year becomes his new year's change from Nisan to Tishrei, like a Goyish king. So now the Gemara says, Maskif lo Rav Kahana. Rav Kahana asked, Umi Hechemitz, did he become sour? Did he become a bad king to the Jews? Vaksiv, it says in the Pasuk, seems that the Pasuk seems to sing his praises. When the building of the Beis Hamikdash, in the operations of the Beis Hamikdash, he was the most generous person. He said, Mo chashchan, whatever you desire, I'm paying for. If you need bnei torin, oxes, dichrin, if you need sheep, if you need oxes, cows, dichrin, sheep, the imrin, and the imrin is also, dichrin is male sheep, and imrin rams, and imrin is female sheep. Hi, Sheldon. We just began. We're on Daf Dalet.
Hi, Bernard.
We're just discussing.
Okay.
The pasuk is just describing. We're trying to figure out how Koresh turned sour from a good king to a not good king. He seems to be saying that anything you want in the Beis Hamikdash, I'm paying for.
Right.
Everything that's what you want, for God, I'm paying for. Chintin, if you want wheat, melach, salt, kamar, wine, umshach, wine. Kemeima kahana de Yerushalayim, according to the people, the kahanim request in Yerushalayim, lehevim misyahiv lahaim liyim biyim. I'm giving it day by day. I'm paying for the operations. It's one thing to build the building. It's another thing to pay for the operations of the building. Di loishali, nothing will be held back. So how could you say that this Koresh was basically a person that turned sour against the Jewish people? We see he's paying for the whole operations of the Beis Hamikdash, at least initially. Amalei Rabbi Yitzchak said, look closely. Rabbi Yitzchak told Rabbi Yitzchak told Rav Kahana, I think it was Rav Kahana. Rabbi Yitzchak answered that mitunach. Look at that pasuk from the load that you're carrying. If you look the pasukim clearly, you can see that he turned sour. Why? He said, in order to bring a pleasant sacrifice to the L'kol Shmaya, to the God. I'm giving this so that you bring sacrifices to God, but on condition that you pray for the life of the king, for my health and my kids' health. So he had like a shaloi l'shem shemayim. He wasn't totally pure. He says, the reason why I'm giving you all this is because I want you to continuously pray on my behalf and for my kids. So the Gemara says, anybody who does that, is that not praiseworthy? I mean, what's wrong with that? For Tanya, we learned in a brisa. Listen to this brisa. A person who says, "Selazu l'tzedakah," I'm giving this money to tzedakah, bishvil sheyichyu b'ni, bonai, that my son should live. In other words, she should become healthy. Uvishvil, or he says, I should she'eska bo l'chai oilam haba, and I should merit to go into the future world. So harezeh, whoever does this, you think he's doing a mitzvah shloi l'shem shemayim. Harezeh tzaddik gamur. He is a complete tzaddik. They give him the highest praise of somebody who does give tzedakah. So if that's the case, then what was wrong with what Koresh did? He's giving money to the operations of the Beis Hamikdash. He says, just pray for my life and pray for my children's life. So the Gemara makes a differentiation is loy kasha. It's not difficult. Can be Yisrael, a Jewish king, a Jewish person is permitted to say that. Why? Because when he gives money to tzedakah, if it doesn't work out, he doesn't say God's unfair and he's angry at God and starts regretting why he gave the tzedakah. He's okay with it. He said the reason why my prayers weren't answered is probably because I have a lot of sins. But Khan, over here, we're talking about Bagoyim. Really, this Koresh was like a goy, and therefore, when he says something like that, it's selfish motivated. And therefore we don't allow him to get away with it by saying, "Oh, I'm giving it so that you pray for me, for my kingdom, and for my kids." It doesn't work, because if something would happen, he would say something bad about Hashem, that he's not bad about God, that he's not fair. So therefore, it's not a pure giving. And therefore, when the Psukim described that he said that, they right away saw already he became sour. He's not such a kosher king, and therefore they count him like a goy. That's a very good Gemara to remember. Sell it to do tzedakah, and you give it on condition something should happen. Harezet tzaddik gomer. It's a very hard thing to understand. You wouldn't call him.
Who called him Koresh?
The Gemara, it's a nickname that the Psukim give him, and the Koresh, Rashi says, is it's a play on the words kosher.
Kosher, and then maybe Russia.
Not Russia, because Kovav Reishin, maybe not a Russia. Obviously,
because he soured at the end, and he
soured, but that right. He soured, but he wasn't Russia evil.
I see.
He didn't stop anything.
So it's from kosher. It's a kosher king.
It's a kosher king. Okay. But his real name was Daryavesh. That I think those are the names of the Dyrus. Mm-hmm. But they see already that he's unpure about it. He has selfish motives.
Okay.
What's the raya from Stucca? Isn't there a special halacha uvichanuni na bazos that we're allowed to make deals for giving Stucca, that one should have a long life. One should get
Oh,
Sorted.
so that may be by Maestras, because I think that psukim is talking about
Right.
Maestras, and that donated
but-
to the Beis Hamikdash, to the Levium.
Oh,
But
but I
here,
thought generally it's stucca. That stucca you can make a tanai or make a deal. I'm giving
Right.
stucca X, Y, or Z, but it doesn't necessarily apply to other mitzvahs.
it could be. I mean, there is an opinion that when the Talmud was written, it was written in abbreviation, and really it said Tzaddik Gimel, and we the person that printed it wrote it as Tzaddik Gomer, but really it's called Tzedakah Gemura, means that you were Makayim the mitzvah. Gemura means you did the complete mitzvah of tzedakah. It's not the best form of the way to do the mitzvah, but it's nevertheless considered tzedakah. So in that case, it's not a praiseworthy thing to do. It's just don't think that you didn't do the mitzvah properly. You were yaitze the mitzvah. There's many Torahs on this giving tzedakah on condition something should happen. But I think that a lot of that has to do with Meiser, and not so much just a $1 to tzedakah. Although,
What
if you,
about the ads in the paper where I mean, I think it's not nice, but the Rav, this says if you give this,
Right.
then you will be guaranteed. I mean, how could they say that based
Right.
on any of this?
like
And they
Rashi,
do it. It's in every paper.
I know. Rashi says, a Jew, even even if it doesn't work out, tigar. He doesn't call God like a bad name, you know. He puts the suffering that he has because he did averis. But the guy, if it doesn't work out, he's already saying God's unfair with him. It's hard it's a hard Gemara.
There's something, a reference to that. I'm not sure. We talked about the big sukkah at the end of days, the Mashiach, and talking about, the idea of sukkah.
Right.
We sit in the sukkah of even whether it's hot,
Right,
it's
right.
cold.
That's excellent.
Goyim, if it's hot, if it's uncomfortable, they'll kick the sukkah.
Right, exactly.
They'll kick
Exactly.
it, like kicking God.
Right, exactly. Same idea.
Yeah.
The Iba Yisema, I'll prove for another pasuk, Manol on the Achmitz, that how do you know that this Kairish turned sour? The Ksiv, he gave instructions on how to build the Beis Hamikdash, and he wrote, Nidbachim the Evan Galal Klas. I want 3 rows of stone, V'nidbach the and 1 row should be made of wood, Chadas. 1 row should be made of wood. So V'nifkasam in the base Malchus Yav, and all the expenses from the kingdom. So Lamali the Avid Hachi, why make 1 row of wood if you're making 3 rows of stone? Savar, he held, Imar de Be Yehudi, if the Jews are going to rebel against me, Iklei Benura, I could light the building on fire. So he wanted to make the building very flammable, not fitting to code, so to speak. So he was a unstable guy, and he felt that if the one thing the Jews will do wrong with me, I have a way to destroy that building. So the Gemara asked, Atu Shlomo loy Avad Hachi, did Shlomo do the same idea? By the first temple, Shlomo built it also with a row of wood. Shloisha Ture Gazes, Vitur Krisis Arazim, 3 rows of stone, of cut stone, and 1 row of cedar. And for the Gemara, Shloisha of Shlomo Avad Milmala. Shlomo put the wood row on top, the Avad Milmata, and he put it on the bottom. Shlomo Shake Bevinyani. Shlomo Melech recessed the row of wood inside the building, so it wasn't sticking out. Ihu loy shake bevinyana. He didn't recess it in. Shlomo Sadia Besida. Shlomo sprayed it with plaster, so it became unflammable, that wood. Ihu, but Dyrus Kairesh loy Sadia Besida did not spray it with plaster, and therefore the more flammable building was the one that Kairish built, and that is a proof that he had bad intentions. Then the Gemara says another very fascinating thing. I was thinking about this. Rav Yosef v'tem Rabbi Yitzchak menolan de Achmitz. How do I know that he became sour? Mahacha from here. Vayomeli hamelach v'hashegel yoshev be'etzloi. And remember, Nehemiah wants to come and rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. So the king answered him that it's okay. V'hashegel Yoshev said, there was the shegel sitting next to him. My shegel, what is the shegel? Amar Rabba, Rabbas Barlima Mishmei de Rav Kalbasa. He had this dog that he would sleep with, bestiality, and that was his, so to speak, his marriage to his dog. Now, I was thinking about that. That means that it's interesting that his father Achashverosh, he had relations with all the women in the world, as you see in the Megillus Esther, right? So you could see that his son became so unstable that his intimacy was with a dog. That's how it's fascinating. So the Gemara asks a question: if the word shegel means a dog, by Daniel giving the king of Bavel, Belshazzar, he was telling him that you lose, that Bavel is going to be the world power will be lost because you raised yourself above by using the vessels of the Beis Hamikdash. Ba'ant, you, V'rav Ranach, and your ministers, Sheglasach, and your whatever that is, Ulchenosach, and your concubines, Chamra Shasayim behind, were drinking with the vessels of the Beis Hamikdash. So basically, Daniel was telling Belshazzar that you are defiling the holy vessels of the Beis Hamikdash by drinking and using it frivolously. And you and Sheglasach was drinking from those goblets. So if the shegel kalbasahi, if the word shegel means dog, kalbasa bach mishtiya chamrahi, does a dog drink wine? So it doesn't make sense. In other psukim, that shegel wouldn't fit in with the word dog. So the Gemara says, "Holai kasha." That's not so difficult. The malaf malfod lo v'shasiyam, that they had a special dog that they had at the table that they taught how to drink wine, and that particular dog was drinking wine at the table of Belshazzar, drinking wine from the goblets of the Beis Hamikdash. Ata. If the word shegel means dog, I have another question. How do you translate this pasuk? Diksiv, it says, "Benois malachim bikroisecha." The daughters of kings will give you honor. In other words, this is the Mashiach, Mr. Mashiach. The nations of the world are going to give him special honor. Nitzvah shegel leminecha. Your shegel will be on your right side, bechesem oifir, with gold from oifir. So this Mashiach, everybody's going to come to visit him, and he's going to have a shegel on his right side. Means our Mashiach is going to have a dog. Shegel kalbasehi. What is this Tehillim telling the Jewish people that our Mashiach is going to have a dog next to him? So no. So the Gemara says that Hachi Kamar. This is how you're supposed to understand that pasuk in Tehillim. B'schar shechaviva Torah Yisrael k'shegel l'goyim. In the reward that the Jewish people loved the Torah so much and sacrificed for themselves for Torah, like a goy will sacrifice for his dog. Zechisem lekesem oifer. We were merited to have this gold from oifer. We were zoicha to have Mashiach and special wealth at the time of Mashiach. And it's because the Jews displayed self-sacrifice for the Torah, like a goy will sacrifice himself for his shegel, for his dog. And you can see that today, how precious. I work amongst these hippies. Everything is the dog. So you have to contrast that the way they care for their dog is the way we so self-sacrifice for the Torah. That's the merit of we're going to bring the Mashiach.
It's seen in all the literature. I mean, about dogs, everything about the dog, my best friend,
right?
Old Yeller. I mean, that was a famous book written. I mean, they dogs are written, but they love their dogs.
Right. I worked on Wall Street, and the first lesson I learned, my boss told me, "You have no friends here. If you want a friend, get a dog."
Yeah.
So that's my first lesson. Really, shegel malkasi. The word shegel means queen. So how do you know Koresh had a dog? He had a tradition, a verbal tradition that it was a dog. Why did the pasuk call his dog queen? Shehoisa chaviva olav kishegel. He loved the dog like a queen. Iname shayshiva bimkaim shegel. He put the dog in the seat of his wife, of the queen. So therefore, that's why it's called shegel. But the word shegel doesn't necessarily mean dog. So that's how you can answer up all the other psukim. Iboy is ema. Amenolon the ichmitz. Not because he had a dog. Mahacha. From here, ad kasaf kakrin me'av ad chintin koy me'av ad chamar batim me'av ad batim mashiach ma malachti loiksav. He says that you can take silver up to 100 talents, wheat up to 100 kur, wine such and such. He started giving limits how much we can take, and salt as much as you want, oil as much as up to a limit. So Mi'ikara, when he first said he's going to help out with the operations, beloy kitzisa, it was unlimited, a blank check. Hashana now bikitzusa, and the psukim say he's giving limits to how much you can take. So we see he soured. So the Gemara says that's not a proof that you sour. Dilma mi'ikara, from the very beginning, he didn't know how much it will all cost him. But now he knows, so he could limit it. There's nothing wrong with putting limits on it. You must use the psukim from earlier that the other psukim that describe that he soured. Like we learned before about he was doing these things for selfish reasons, but not from this pasuk. Or he had a dog. That proves that he soured.
Bernard, halachically, he was Jewish, right?
So that's the wonder. Like
I mean, Esther is Jewish, and he should be Jewish.
Absolutely. So could be.
And I'm thinking that maybe the fact that he was maybe he started out good because he felt he was Jewish, and then possibly as a king he was pressured by the people in his court and the people around him that you're doing this because you're Jewish, and he wanted to show that maybe somehow that it wasn't impartial, that he was impartial, and he soured. There's a possibility.
Yeah, that's a very good theory. That's excellent. There are others that, because of that, say what you said, that he cannot be Esther's son. Otherwise, he would be Jewish. So it must be that this Dyrus is not, maybe from another marriage or something like that. Or they say Esther was a shade or something like that, a demon. What?
That's I never heard of it. I mean, Esther, the Malka was
when he had relations with Ahasuerus, there was a demon there, so it wasn't really his kid or something like that.
I see.
Okay, so let's just to get very quickly over here. The psukim say when a person makes a neder to Hashem, lo yisa'acher l'shalmoi, you cannot delay to pay it back. In other words, if you promise to bring a carbon to the Eibishter, don't delay it. You must bring it right away as soon as you can, and if not, you get a chait. But what is called a delay? So that's what our discussion now in the new Gemara is. It says, the Mishnah says that in Nisan is the first day of Nisan is the first day of the Yom Tovs. What does that mean? So first the Gemara says, the Yom Tov comes out on the 1st of Nisan. It's on the 15th day of Nisan. So it's a little strange. Even though the Mishnah says Be'echad ben Nisan is Rosh Hashana for Regalim, for Yom Tovs, Amar Rav Chizda, it means in the Regal, it's Shaboy Rosh Hashana Regalim. On the first day of Nisan, you will find a Yom Tov coming up, which will be the Rosh Hashana for Yom Tovs. But really, I think the Rosh Hashana for Yom Tovs is on the 15th day of Nisan. It's a strange way of saying it. What's nafkamina? What's the difference? L'noider. If someone makes a promise, he'll make him Allah b'bal ta'acha. When exactly does he transgress the avera of don't delay it? So that Rab Shimoni. Our Mishnah goes according to Rab Shimon. And so how do you explain it? Basically, Rab Shimon holds that you only over bal ta'acher is if you pass through the 3 Yom Tovim in order, Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot. The Tanya we learned in a Brisa, Echad HaNoider, the Echad HaMagdish, the Echad HaMarach, whether you say, I promise to bring the value of my life to the Beis HaMikdash, or you make a donation, any item in your house to the Beis Hamikdash, or you do Erechin, Kevin Shavar all of Gimel Regalim, as soon as 3 Yom Tovim pass, Oiva Baal Tacha. So the Tanna Kama says that any 3 Regalim, so if you make this promise, let's say in the summertime, Sukkot, Pesach, and Shavuos, as soon as Shavuos passes, you're over the Isra Baal Ta'acha if you didn't pay your obligation. Rav Shimon says, no, Gimel Regalim Kesidron, the 3 Yom Tovim have to be in the precise order. The Chag Hamatzah is Tchila, and the Pesach is first. That's why Pesach is the Rosh Hashana for Regalim. V'chein hoy Rav Shimon ben Yochai omer. This Rav Shimon is actually Rav Shimon ben Yochai. Regalim Pa'amim Gimel, sometimes you get 3 Yom Tovs to pay your debt. Pa'amim Dalet, sometimes you get 4 Yom Tovs to pay your debt. And Pa'amim Chamisha, sometimes you get 5. Ketzad, how is that possible? Nardar Lifnei Pesach, if you make a neder to bring a carbon, let's say, and it's before Pesach, right? So January time, you make a neder. So then Gimel, because as soon as Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkot, after Sukkot, if you fulfill your obligation, you're over the Avera Baal Ta'acha. Lifnei Atzeres, but if you make it before Shavuos, you get Chamisha, you get 5 Yom Tovs to pass, because you get Shavuos, Sukkot, and then Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkot, because it has to be in that order, Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot. So you'll get 5 Yom Tovs so that's a good time to make Nedarim. Lifnei Chag, but if you make it before Sukkot, you'll only get 4 Yom Tovs to pass, Sukkot, and then Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, in order for the Baal Ta'achar to kick in. This Vera Baal Ta'acha. Tanur Rabbanan. The Gemara now elaborates on this. Isser Chayave Hadamin Va'erechem V'Charamim V'Hakteshes Chatois V'Hashamish. If you're obligated to bring any of these items to the Beis Hamikdash, if you did an Aveira, let's say, and you Mechal Shabbos by mistake, and you have to bring a Karban Chatas, or an Oshem, or you did an Aveira that is obligated to you to bring a Karban Oshem, you have 3 Yamin, that's the Baal Ta'acha. You must bring it. Oilus, if you promise to bring a carbon oil or shlamim. Tzedakos is if you promise to give the gabbai tzedakah for who's the one responsible for distributing it to aniyim. Umaisrus and maisrus for maisa sheni, maisa ani, bechor, maisa pesach, maisa behema. This is maisa behema. To give the bechor, if you have a bechor, you must give it to the kohen. Umaser and maisa behema to bring it as a shlamim, which is similar to this shlamim. Pesach, I think Pesach means that it's not Pesach anymore. It's a leftover carbon Pesach, so to speak, because you brought a replacement. So this Pesach becomes a shlamim. And then leket shichel, we go to Amabeis, Dalar Amabeis. Leket shichel peya. Let's say you had leket shichel peya that you accidentally brought it to your house. So you must distribute all these things. Kivin she'avru aleim shloisha regalim. If 3 Yom Tov pass and you didn't distribute it or fulfill your obligations to bring the carbon in the Beis Hamikdash, oiva b'Baal Ta'acha, you get the Aveira Baal Ta'acha. Rav Shimon says, we saw this before. Rav Sholosh regalim considering you have to do it in order. The Chag HaMatzos tchila. Chag HaMatzos is the beginning. Rav Meir Omer, Kivin Shavalei Regel Echad Oiva Baal Tacha. Rav Meir is strict. He says only if one yontiv passes and you didn't fulfill your obligation, you're over the Al Ta'acha. Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov Omer, Kivin Sha'avro Olam Shnei Regolim Oiva Baal Tacha. Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov says you have 2 yontivs to bring it, and then if you don't, then you get the Aveira Baal Ta'acha. And Rab Loza Rab Shimon Oimer, Kevin Shaval Chag Asukas Oiver Aleim B'Baal Ta'acha. As soon as Chag Asukas passes, the main one is Sukkos to pass. So if you make a neder after Sukkos, then you get Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkos. But if you make the neder right before Sukkos, you only have right Sukkos to pass, because the main one is Sukkos. So we have 5 opinions over here. One says 3 Yom Tovs. One says Rab Shimon says it has to be in order. Rab Meir says it's 1 Yom Tov. Rab Lezer Yaakov says 2 Yom Tovs. Rab Loza Rab Shimon says Sukkos is the main one. So my Tama, the Tanakama. What is the reason? We're just going to describe the reasons, and that will end the daf. So here, the pasuk says that you have to have Sukkos, right? 7 days, you should have Sukkos, v'yisach sameach. Okay, you should be very happy on Sukkos. Then the Chumash says right afterwards, shalosh pamim b'shana, 3 times a year, you have to go to the Beis Hamikdash. Chag HaMatzos, Chag HaShavuos, and Chag HaSukkos. Now, this Chag, first of all, the whole, you don't have to repeat Chag HaMatzos, Chag HaShavuos, Chag HaSukkos, because the whole parsha before is discussing Chag HaMatzos, Chag HaShavuos, Chag HaSukkos. So this is superfluous, repeating the word Chag HaMatzos, Chag HaShavuos, Chag HaSukkos. So the Tanakama says, we just got through this Parshas Re'eh, got through discussing the Yom Tovim. Why does the Torah repeat itself and say Chag HaMatzos, Chag HaShavuos, Chag HaSukkos? Why does it repeat those three Yom Tovim? It just got through telling you what Chag HaMatzos is all about, what Chag HaShavuos is all about, what Sukkos is all about. Shema Mina, this is a proof, L'Bal Ta'achar. We don't need it over here. It just is teaching you a din somewhere else. Elsewhere in the Torah tells you don't delay bringing your obligations, but the Torah is not descriptive of what's called a delay. So these extra psukim over here in Parshas Re'eh tell us a delay is called if 3 Yom Tovim pass. That is the opinion of Tanakama. 3 Yom Tovim to pass. Rab Shimon ein etzorach loim b'chag HaSukkah sheboi dibra kosev lomali nema shezeh achron. Rab Shimon says very interesting. He says the pasuk before talks about Sukkot. So in Rab Shimon's opinion, Chag HaSukkos is extra. Since we just talked about Sukkot in the pasuk before, so why does it repeat the word Chag HaSukkos? To teach you that you have to go in this precise order. Chag HaMatzos, Chag HaShavuos, and Chag HaSukkos. Only then you're over Bal Ta'achar. So that's Rab Shimon's opinion. It has to be in the precise order of Chag HaMatzos being first. And again, the author of our Mishnah, that Pesach has a Rosh Hashana for Bal Ta'achar is Rab Shimon. Rab Meir, what did Rab Meir come up with this one Yom Tiv? You're already over everything. My timer, the Ksiv, Uvasa Shama Ve'esha Shama. There's a pasuk says as soon as you come there, you have to bring your obligation. So it says one Yom Tiv. It's another pasuk. V'Rabbana Hahu La'aseh. That's teaching you. You get an assay that you have a mitzvah assay, a positive commandment to bring it on the first Yom Tiv that you get to Eretz Yisrael. But if you to be over the lav, the negative commandment, according to Rabbanan, you need 3 Yom Tovim to pass. Rab Meir says no, they're linked. The positive and the negative commandment of don't delay are linked because Kevin the Amalei Rachmana Aisi, since the Torah says bring it on the first Yom Tiv, V'loi Aisi, if you don't bring it, that's when you get the Aveira Bal Ta'acha. So Rab Meir is of the opinion that 1 Yom Tiv already you get the Bal Ta'acha. Rab Lezer ben Yaakov of my time, where did he come up with 2 Yom Tivs? He has another pasuk. This is what you should bring. You should bring your obligations in when at least when 2 Yom Tivs. Yom Mayadechem miyat miyadem shnayim. The minimum of a plural Yom of the word Mayadechem is 2. The minimum is 2. So therefore, you have 2 Yom Tivs to bring your obligation. Rabbanim, what did they do with this Mayadechem according to Rabbanim? Ahi look at Rabbi Yoina. Dam Rabbi Yoina hukshu kol hamayadem klum zelzeh shekulam mechaprim al klumas migdash ukdashav. The Rabbi Yoina said that all Seirim, every Yom Tiv had a Seir Chatas. What did they forgive you for? What did that Chatas that you brought as a carbon that was brought as part of the Kabbanas Tzibor, what did that bring about atonement for? So the Gemara says that they're all coming to be mechaper on Averis that have to do with defiling the Beis HaMikdash. If someone was Tamei, went into the Beis HaMikdash, or he was Tamei and ate, or if he was Tamei and ate Kachim. So they all come to bring mechaper on the same thing, like Rosh Chodesh is being mechaper on something like that. So it teaches you something else. So now the question is, Rab Elazar Rab Shimon, my timer, what's his reason, right? Why did he say that the only one that matters is Sukkos? Doesn't matter. Sukkos is, as soon as Sukkos passes, Bal Ta'achar. But if the other Yom Tovim don't count. Where did he come up with his idea? Tanya Rab Elazar Bar Shimon Omer lo yom Chag HaSukkos. The word Chag HaSukkos is extra. Sheboy di barakasa. The pasuk talked about that. Lama nema shezeh goyrem. That this is the main one. The main one is Chag HaSukkos, and that's it. Nothing else. So a Gemara basically just got through the 5 opinions. Again, to repeat, the 5 opinions are to over Bal Ta'achar, you need 3 Yom Tovs. Rab Shimon says you need them in order. And Rab Meir says 1 Yom Tiv. Rab Lezer ben Yaakov says 2 Yom Tivs, and Rab Lazar, Rab Shimon is the main one is Sukkos. One more point. Rab Meir, Rab Lezer ben Yaakov, who have outside psukim, right? They don't use this pasuk of I'm showing you over here. Chag HaMatzos, Chag HaShavuos, Chag HaSukkos. They have outside psukim to teach their idea. Either it's one yontiv or two psukim. So then the Gemara asked the obvious question: Hi b'Chag HaMatzos, b'Chag HaShavuos, Chag HaSukkos, my darshabei. What do they use that drasha for? That teaches you something else, another idea. How do I know Shavuos? You have to bring every yomtiv. You have to bring your personal carbon, oilis re'iyah and shal mechagiya, two carbonis. How do you know that on Shavuos, if you didn't bring it on the first on your Shavuos, you have 7 days even after yomtiv is over. You have 7 days after Shavuos to make up if you did not bring your oilis re'iyah and shal mechagiya. And that's the reason, by the way, after Shavuos, we don't say Tachman, because you could bring your obligation carbonis for the Yom Tiv, even though Shavuos is over. How do you know that idea? Shavuos is compared to Pesach time. Just like Pesach time, you can make up your oilus re'iyah shamar chagiga throughout the Yontiv of Pesach. You didn't have to bring it on the first day because the whole Pesach is 7 days. So Shavuos also, you can make up the carbon for 7 days. One more thing. So if you're comparing Shavuos to something, compare it to Sukkos. Sukkos has 8 days. So just like Sukkos, you can bring it, you have 8 days of Sukkos. So also maybe Shavuos has 8 days to make up the carbon, because you could compare it either Shavuos to Pesach, compare it to Sukkos. Compare it to Pesach, it has 7 days. Compare it to Sukkos, it has 8 days. So who told you to compare it to Pesach? So the Gemara says Sukkos doesn't have 8 days to make up the carbon. Shmini regel b'fnei atzmehu. Shmini Atzeres is its own yontiv. It's nothing to do with Sukkot. So really, Sukkot only has 7 days. So the Gemara says not true. 6 matter, 6 by 6 halachas. Shmini Atzeres has different dinim than Sukkot. Avalinian tashlumim, the rehakol tashlumim the rishon he. The Tanan mishloi chag yom tev rishon shechag choygek kol yag regel v'yom tev achor shechag. So anybody who didn't bring his carbon chagiga on the first day of Sukkot could actually bring his carbon chagiga on the 8th day of Sukkot. So actually, Sukkot does have 8 days. So why is Shavuos compared to Chag HaMatzos? It should be compared to Chag HaSukkos. Answers the Gemara: to fast the meruba loy to fast to fast the mu'at loy to fast to fast. If you have a choice to take the bigger number or the smaller number, generally we try to take the smaller number. And the smaller number here is to say that that Shavuos only has a 7 days of makeup, not 8 days. So the Gemara says, okay, fine. That tells you that why the Chumash has to say Shavuos is compared to Chag HaMatzos. But why did the Torah write the word Sukkos in that pasuk? Sukkos is like Shushay Chag HaMatzos. Sukkos is compared to Chag HaMatzos. We go one line on Daf Hey. Ma Chag HaMatzos ta'on lina, af Chag HaSukkos ta'on lina, v'asam enolan ksiv misa b'bayka v'lachta elecha. Just like Chag HaMatzos, when the day after the Seder, right, the next day, Pesach is over, because Pesach is 1 day. You cannot go home Matzah Yontif. You had to sleep in Yerushalayim an extra night and then go home, because the pasuk says ufanisa b'boiker. You have to turn in the morning and then go home, and that's the first day of Chalamoy in the morning. Then you can go home. That's the Torah giving you permission. That's called lina. You have to overnight that night after you brought after the Yom Tiv. So also Sukkos, after the first day of Sukkos, Matzah Yom Tiv Sukkos, the first day, you also needed to sleep overnight, and because we compare Sukkos to Chag HaMatzos. So basically, that's why Rab Lazar ben Yaakov needed these pasuk of Chag HaMatzos, Chag HaShavuos, Chag HaSukkos, not to teach you the dinim of Baal Ta'acha, but to teach you 2 dinim. One, that Chag HaShavuos has a 7-day makeup, and one, Sukkos has a din of lina that you have to sleep there overnight, just like Pesach. By Chag HaMatzos, you have to sleep there overnight. Okay. A lot we do.
That was a lot of stuff.
Yes,
Excellent, excellent. A lot of stuff. Yeah, it's a lot of
A
stuff.
lot of
yes,
stuff.
Found it, by the way, in the Siddur, then you didn't have to send anything.
yes,
But
I'll
is-
send it.
No, no,
Okay.
I found it, but is that considered a Kaddish actually that you can say when you're in a Bailis?
I don't know. It's a tefillah like a kaddish. I don't know if there's a source for that. I'll try to find one.
But
So
I,
Baruch, so the fact that Shavuos is the makeup of 7 days, that's why we don't say Tachanun for another 7 days. That Shavuos is 2 weeks.
Right, right, right. That's
the
exactly why.
reason.
That's
From
exactly
here.
from this Gemara.
This Gemara. Okay.
Baruch, is there a Gemara Shas with the Yiddish translation available?
Yes, yes.
Extra?
I could send you a link for that. They do some in some Gemara. It's not complete.
With English translation, I'm sure there is.
There was a
That's
German translation that just got on Safaria, a German translation that was done right before the war. A fascinating thing, and they just posted it. It's in German, but if you can read German, they have it with English also.
I see. Okay. Baruch, thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good enough. Good enough.
Good night.
Thank you.